Hello everyone. How is everybody today? I am just getting a couple of things still set up here for our demo. I got my nail into our trainer hand and I'm just cutting up a few of my table towels. It's the same table towels that I've got on my table right now. I just like to cut those up when I'm working with acrylic, and I just use the smaller pieces of them. So that's what I'm doing to get ready here. This will give everybody a chance to join in. Hopefully you guys had your notifications set, and that way you know that we are going live. I'm going to see if I can pull up my chat here, see what we've got going on, and hopefully we will be able to chat with you guys. And there we go. I got my chat today. It's looking like a good week for technology this week. I know you guys have seen me having some challenges with our with my chat here, but we are good to go this week. So hi everybody, welcome in. Thank you guys all for joining us today. We went back to basics yesterday with our tip application. Today we're going back to basics with our acrylic application. So if you're looking for some insight and education on applying your tips, that was yesterday. Acrylic is going to be today. We're going to actually be sculpting out a nail today. So I usually will start by shortening up that natural nail, whether it's on my trainer hand or on my real client or myself. I always like to shorten up that nail. This way it doesn't interfere with my form. Sometimes with a natural nail, that natural nail may not have a perfect C-curve. It may be a little bit uneven. So by shortening that nail, it's going to fit your form is going to fit a little bit more flush up underneath there. So that's why I like to start by just shortening that up a little bit. And let's go ahead and get into our prep. So I always start my prep by pushing back the cuticles, whether it's on my trainer hand, whether it's on a real person, whether it's on myself. Always start with pushing back the cuticles. That way your cuticle is going to be, well, we're going to work on the rest of the cuticles later, but basically your cuticle is going to be out of the way. Once you push that back, then you can go through and you can really clean up that nail surface. But if you're working on a real client, when you're pushing back the cuticles, this is also your time to talk with them and maybe do a little bit of a consultation if you haven't already, to determine what you're doing on the nails. Are you putting on acrylics? Are you doing a gel manicure? What is it that you're doing? What length and shape are you wanting to have? What kind of art designs are you wanting to have? Hopefully a lot of this stuff you've already discussed with your client in booking, but sometimes we just need to reassess or just confirm what they're going to be having on their nails that day. So it's always just a good chance for you to have a quick little conversation or consultation with your client. Now I did put a brand new sanding band onto my mandrel. The mandrel underneath, you guys, if you didn't see, mandrel looks like this. It doesn't have really a bit to it. There's not any grit to it or anything like that that's going to file. That's why we need to put that sanding band on. And you always want to make sure that you're using a brand new, clean, fresh, new, I shouldn't say clean, a new, brand new sanding band when you're working on every new client. That way you're going to have that proper grit. It's not going to be worn down, and it's also going to be clean, and you're not going to have to worry about germs or bacteria or anything like that. Sanding bands are not something that is reusable. So don't try to disinfect them. Don't try to sanitize them. They are something that you would replace. Now the mandrel that it goes onto, that is sanitizable and disinfectable. So make sure that you do sanitize and disinfect that in between clients and change out that sanding band for every new client. Looks like we've got some people from lots of different countries joining us here today. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, let's go ahead and prep our nail here. And I'm going to work with my e-file at about 5,000 RPMs. And I'm just going gently right around that cuticle area. And we've already pushed back the cuticle, but what this is going to do is it's going to remove any of that excess protein growth. So any of that extra cuticle that may still be stuck down onto the nail, we're going to clean that off. And then I'm just going through and gently removing the shine. So what this is doing is creating just a little bit of texture, and we're going to take away the shiny surface of the nail. Now what that shiny surface really is basically oils on the surface of the nail. So we're trying to break up those surface oils so that we can remove them completely so that our product is going to adhere really well. So that's really the purpose of prepping the nail. Now you want to make sure that as you're prepping that you're basically just making contact with your bit. You're not using a lot of pressure. You don't have a very high speed of your electric file, just very gentle. It's not going to cause any damage if you do that properly. Okay. Now, next thing we're going to use is our swipe. And we're going to use this to cleanse the nail. We're going to use this to help remove any of those extra oils that maybe we didn't get broken up. And we're also going to use the swipe to remove any germs or bacteria that are on the nail. Now, I'm going through, I dusted off the nail really quickly with my manicure brush, pumped a little bit of that swipe onto my brush, and now I'm really going through and giving that nail a good scrub to really cleanse everything. So again, removing the surface oils, removing any germs or bacteria, and just cleansing in general. So we're going to have a nice clean dry surface. Let me come in a little closer. You can see that it's starting to dry. We've got a little bit of that swipe still on there, but now at this point our nail is nice and dry. You do want to make sure that you're waiting until all of that moisture evaporates before you go on to your next step. This way our protein bond is going to bond really well. If we were to leave that little bit of wet swipe on there, our protein bond is going to kind of be null and void. And we want to make sure we're getting a good coat of protein bond on there because protein bond is our bonder. This is what's going to help to give our nail really great adhesion. And it works kind of like a double-sided tape. So it's going to leave a sticky surface for our product to grab onto, but it's also going to stick down to that natural nail. And I'm starting about halfway up the nail, and then I work back towards the cuticle. I think I tapped out a little bit too much of my protein bond out of my brush, but I do want to remove a little bit of that. I don't want to go in with a brush fully loaded because I don't want to flood this onto the nail. I want to use it sparingly, but not too sparingly, if that makes any sense. So again, brushing from the center out towards my cuticle, just enough to coat that nail. And then we're going to go through on all 10 nails, apply our first coat of protein bond, and we're going to be doing an acrylic nail today. So anytime I'm doing acrylics or hard gels, or even a tip application using my tip and jewel adhesive, then I like to do 2 coats of my protein bond, just to really ensure that great adhesion and make sure that I've got even coverage of that protein bond all the way through the nail. All right. Next step we're going to do in sculpting is we're going to apply our form. Now we're not putting a tip on here. We're actually going to create the extension from scratch. So we're going to actually be building and sculpting our whole entire nail out of acrylic so that we don't have that extra layer of plastic underneath. So to apply our form, we're going to take that little tab out of the center. I'm going to stick that right on the back. That way, when we put that little tab on the back, it's going to give our form a little bit more durability. It's going to feel a little bit more firm, and it's not going to feel so flimsy feeling. So if you had just your regular form and you did not put that tab on the back, it's going to feel very, very flimsy. I think flimsy is probably the best word. But once you have that little tab on the back, it's going to feel more firm, a little bit more secure. So make sure that you are putting that tab on the back. You can put it with the shiny side up or the sticky side up. It doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered. It can go both directions. You can either put it looking on the side like that or up and down like this. You guys, it doesn't matter as long as you put that form or that little tab on the back, okay? There's a question in the chat, is it better to sculpt it than using a tip? You guys, there's benefits of both. And I personally have been a sculpting nail tech for a long time because for me, if I'm able to completely build out that nail exactly to my client's nail, I feel like it's going to be more of a custom service and I'm going to be able to actually build the structure and shape of that nail directly to my client's nail. Now, tips have come a long way over the last few years. So there are some really great options for tip applications, but personally, my favorite is to sculpt. And I will say that tips are a one size fits most. So not every tip is going to fit every client. So there are maybe some clients that you will want to sculpt on. So even if you are doing tip applications most of the time, I still think it's very important to learn how to sculpt. So just in case you have a client whose nail doesn't fit in your tip, then you're going to be able to still provide that service for the client and still give them a great set of nails, okay? So it's not which is better than the other, it's just what is better for that client and for you as a tech. Or you as a DIYer, if you're doing your own nails, both can be great options. So, all right, let's go ahead and get our form on. And you'll notice that I pinched together my two little tabs at the end. And I want to make sure that those come together as evenly as we can get them. So that way my form is going to go on nice and straight. If you don't pinch those tabs together nice and evenly, if they're lopsided, then your form is going to go on lopsided and your nail is going to end up lopsided. So always make sure that you're pinching those tabs together as close together as you can get. Okay. Now we're going to open up, there's a little bit of a perforated edge right up top. I'm going to open that up and we're going to get this form right up underneath the nail. Now, I want you guys to see this nice and close. I don't just take that form and just shove that up underneath the nail, because what that can do is that could actually push down into my client's hyponychium. And if you don't know what the hyponychium is, I have a great example here. The hyponychium is, minus that fuzz, hyponychium is that skin underneath your nail. It's what connects your nail bed to that hard nail surface, and it's basically a seal. So it's going to keep out any germs or bacteria. And my hyponychium is slightly grown up a little bit here. You can see up here, there's a little bit of my hyponychium up there. On this one, my hyponychium hasn't grown up. That's just how my nails grow to support my extension or support my free edge. So if your client has a hyponychium that's a little bit farther up here, and you were to take that form and just shove that right up underneath there, that is going to poke into that hyponychium, and that could actually be sore or painful. So you want to make sure that you're not just shoving that form right up underneath there. What you want to do instead is start at a slight downward angle with your form, come underneath that nail so that it just catches that free edge, and then we're going to lift up on the end. When we lift up, that's just going to pop that form right up underneath that natural nail, and it's going to be flush right up underneath there. We're going to secure it down on the sides, and then we're going to check it. So if we check from the side view, you can see that my form is coming almost straight out. It just ever so slightly tilts downward, just ever so slightly. I want to make sure that the form is coming fairly straight out, but I also want to look at, do you guys see where the light is reflecting here? That's going to actually be my guide for our nail today. We're going to be doing, I think we'll do a coffin shape today. And I'm going to use that line as that light reflection as my guide so that I know where I'm going to be building my product. Now, if I look at this, yes, my form does look slightly angled down, just ever so slightly. But if I look at that line is coming straight out from the corner here, straight out to the point of the form. And that's the line that I want to follow. That's going to be my guide for when I'm sculpting and building out my free edge. Okay, so even though that form is just ever so slightly angled downward, it's okay because that line, that light reflection, is going straight out from that nail. Okay, now the other thing we want to check with our form is straight down the barrel. We want to make sure that our form is flush up underneath that natural nail right under here, that there's no gaps, that there's no open areas. And I'm going to show you guys really quickly, maybe on my nail here, why I always like to cut down that natural nail nice and short, because when you're putting a form on, Let me just pop this on here real quick. If you put a form on, and let's see if I can get this on here. I'm going to over exaggerate this, you guys, but if you look, do you see how there's a little bit of a gap right in here? There's a little bit of a gap right in between my natural nail and that form. I don't want that gap because acrylic or gel, whatever product you're working with, is going to run underneath there, and you're not going to get the proper structure over the top of the nail. You're going to get extra thickness underneath the nail, but if you add product where you should have product over the top, it's going to end up looking too thick. So you want to make sure that that form is flush up underneath that natural nail. But again, when you have a lot of free edge, you can see there is still just a tiny little bit of a gap underneath there. So that's why we do want to shorten that up as much as we can so that we don't have that little bit of extra nail fighting to fit underneath or to fit on our form. Okay, so always make sure that you're shortening up that natural nail so that you don't have any gaps underneath. Now, one other thing, and again, I'm going to over exaggerate this, but sometimes when people put forms on, they pinch the free edge and then they secure it down back here. But do you see how the form looks extra wide right through here? If we leave our form like that, what's going to happen is our nail is going to end up looking wide, and it's going to look like it's got big hips. Now I know it's not a big deal, but we want to slim down that nail. So I'm going to just press that together underneath. So now we have a little bit of a tighter taper all the way through that form. And especially if we're going to be doing a coffin shape, which is I think what we're going to do today, or if you're doing a stiletto or an almond shape, you do want to make sure that you are pinching that form and getting as tight of a curve in there as you can. Now I think we're going to shorten up our nail today. I'm not going to build it all the way to the end of my form. So I'm going to just pinch a little bit more at the end of my form, and that's how we're going to shorten that form up. So now I can build from that free edge down to the point. We'll still create a nice tapered coffin shape, but our form is going to be looking nice and tapered all the way through those little hip areas. Okay? All right, we've got our form on. You guys, if you're learning anything, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you just joined us, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying today's lesson, hit that subscribe button. Basically, hit that subscribe button. All right, you guys, thank you so much if you do. We appreciate all of our followers, and we appreciate you guys being here with us all the time. All right, we're going to grab our acrylic, and looks like I've got a little bit of monomer left in my Dappen dish from my last session. So I'm going to soak that up. I always recommend, first of all, cleaning off your Dappen dish as you're working here, but make sure that you're using clean, fresh monomer every time. You don't want to be trying to reuse your monomer. I know a lot of times people say, but that's such a waste. But I'll tell you guys, in the long run, it's not a waste. It's actually going to be better. For that little bit that was in there, that was my old monomer that I used on my last set. And sometimes as we work and we dip our brush into our monomer, we pick up our powders, sometimes we can accumulate a little bit of residue on that brush. So every time you rinse your brush in the monomer, you're rinsing out a little bit of that acrylic, the powder, into your Dappen dish. And that can actually cause your monomer to start to polymerize, so start to thicken. So that's why we always want to make sure that we're starting with clean, fresh monomer. For every service, you're going to be able to pick up a better pearl every time with clean monomer, and you're going to have better results with your client's nails every time. You're going to have less lifting issues and things like that if you're always starting with clean, fresh monomer. And Kim Murphy, yes, more practice you do, the easier it gets. And I love that you're still learning things. And thank you so much for being here. Whatever level you are at with your nail career, or if you're a DIYer, we love that you are here to learn, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys learn how to apply nails properly and safely so that you do have a long career as a nail tech, or like I said, even a DIYer on yourself. So we always want to make sure that you're applying your product safely and properly so that you don't have any issues with allergic reactions or things like that. So let's start by picking up our pearl of acrylic. So as we're applying product, we have our monomer in our Dappen dish here with my brush. We've got our powder here. me come in nice and close. So when we pick up our product, we want to make sure that we are picking up a good pearl. So I'm going to take my brush. Let me show you this really close. What I do is I give my brush a little bit of a press down, and I don't think you can actually see it on camera, but let me see if I can do this. I'm going to wipe out my brush, and as I wipe out my brush, you notice that it separates the bristles a little bit. Anytime your bristles get separated like that, it's allowing air in between those bristles. So when you go into your liquid, if you just dip straight in, you're leaving that little bit of air pockets and things in between those bristles. So what we want to do instead is we want to give that a little bit of a press down. And nope, I don't think you can see it on camera. But as I press that brush down, it's actually releasing some of those air bubbles. So it's releasing those air bubbles from in between those bristles. So now those little air bubbles are not going to end up on the nail or in my acrylic. So give it just a quick little press down. And then to pick up our powder, what we're going to do, we're going to press down, release those air bubbles. I'm going to tap the back side of my brush on my Dappen dish. So you can see I don't just drag all the way down the back side. I don't drag the back side, drag the front side, 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 side. I don't do those things because what that's going to do is going to release too much of the liquid from the wrong places of the brush. So again, go into your liquid, give it a press down, release those air bubbles, just tap the back side, and you'll see a little bit of that liquid drop out the end of the brush. I'll show you again. Press the back, it's going to drop liquid out the end of the brush. Now, to pick up a pearl, we're going to use the liquid that's in our brush. We're going to pick up our pearl of powder. If you drain out and tap one time, you're going to be able to pick up a large pearl. If you want to pick up a smaller pearl, you want to tap and drain out a little bit more. So the more liquid you drain out of your brush, the smaller of a pearl you're going to be able to pick up. Okay, now the other thing is, notice where I tap my brush. It's right in the belly of the brush, so right in the fattest part of the brush. I don't just drag all of that liquid all the way from the back, because what that's going to do is that's going to take out all of the liquid from my brush. I need to have liquid in that brush to be able to pick up my powder, and if I drag all of that out, there's not going to be any left to pick up my powder. Okay. Now, the other thing, the reason that we tap the back side is now we're going to use the front side of our brush. So you can see the brush has a little bit of a crimp right through the handle, right through the ferrule there. We tap out the liquid from the back side. Now we use the front side to pick up. Because we've released the liquid from the back, it's actually pushed all of that liquid to the front. So the front is where we're going to use to pick up. Now I also want you to take a really nice close look at the brush. See if we can get, there we go. You'll notice that the point of the brush is a little bit of a darker area, whereas more of the belly and back into the base of the brush is a lighter brown. The darker area is the only area that you're going to be using to pick up the powder. If you start to get your acrylic all the way back up into those lighter areas, that's where you're going to start to have issues with the product gumming up your brush or clogging your brush. So make sure that when you are picking up your powder, you're only using that dark area. Now again, we're going to go into our liquid, press out those air bubbles, tap the back side. Now I tapped the back side. I'm going to turn my brush over so I'm using the front side. I'm going to keep my brush at an angle. So I'm going to turn my powder on the side. This is the angle that I'm working at. I'm not just going straight down into that powder. I'm not going to swirl my brush into the powder. I'm coming in at an angle. And notice how I actually rest my fingers on the side. So I balance with my fingers on the side of my container here. So this way, when I pick up my pearl, I'm a lot more stable. I'm not just going in randomly. And you guys, if I've had coffee today, what's going to happen is I'm going to get the shaky shakes. And it happens every time I have coffee. I get a little bit shaky, or if I haven't eaten properly that day, I get a little bit shaky. So that's why I always like to use my fingers to balance either on the side, or if you need to use your table to balance, somehow balance, or sometimes, let me come out just a little bit here. Sometimes I'll even just balance with my wrist on my table, but just to make sure that I'm supporting my hand so that I'm not going to go in there and get shaky when I'm picking up my pearl. Okay. So again, we're going to come in, tap out the back side, turn my brush over. Let me come in nice and close so you can see. So how I'm going to pick up the pearl. Again, I'm not just going to stab my brush into that powder. I'm going to press it down and drag. So that first initial motion is going to be a press, drag, and then I'm going to bounce my brush. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to press and drag and then bounce. Now the reason that I do that press and drag, instead of just going in and pressing, if I were to just go in and press, just like I did there, I'm going to get extra product on the back side of my brush. I don't want product on the back side of my brush. I want to make sure that I'm only keeping product on one side. So that's why we do that press and pull and then bounce, so that it's going to keep the back side of my brush nice and clean. Okay? If my brush is nice and clean when I pick up that pearl, I'm just going to grab a little practice tip here. I can easily set that pearl down onto the nail, lift up my brush, and I'm not going to have any buildup or residue on my brush. Now, if I were to do that same thing, let me grab another tip here. If I were to go back in, pick up that pearl and just jab that into the powder, and then press that onto the nail and lift up, you can see all of that product is sticking to the back of my brush. Okay, so that's why it's important that we go in at that angle, press and pull, and then bounce, so that you're not getting product on the back side of your brush. And you guys, this is the reason right here why I like to cut my table towels into small little squares, so that I always have a nice clean spot to wipe my brush. So always make sure that you do have a clean area that you're wiping your brush, and that you're not wiping it in the same spot over and over, because that could also clog your brush up. Okay, so make sure, cut up your towels if you need to, but always have a nice clean spot to wipe your brush on. And you guys, I'm seeing a lot of new people here, so welcome in everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you do hit that subscribe button so that you can continue to get all of this great free education here. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually pick up a pearl, and we will set this onto the nail. Now, when we start, you guys can see we've already got our nail prepped, we've got our form on. We're going to start by building out our free edge. So just this area that's going to connect that natural nail to our extension. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick up our pearl. I'm going to press, bounce, bounce. And I'm going to take that pearl and I'm going to drain that out. Now, when you're working on that free edge, you want to drain out a little bit of that extra liquid to bring your product a little more to clay form. And what I mean by clay form, let me show you here really quick. If I take a form, all right, so if we were to pick up our pearl, press, bounce, bounce, if I were to just set that onto the nail or onto the form, do you see how quickly that product is going to run? At this point, I would really have to chase that and really manipulate that and maneuver that to get that product into place, okay? When you're working on your free edge, when you're working on that form, you don't want it in this wet of a consistency. You want it in more of a clay form. This way you're going to be able to control it a little bit more. So by pressing in here, we're going to press, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm going to drain some of that liquid out onto my table towel, and usually I do maybe a count of 4. So let me show you that one more time. So press and pull, bounce, 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 drain out 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to set that onto my form, give it a little pressure, release. Now you can see it's just starting to soften, but it's not running like crazy like this first one was. This one's going to be in a little bit more of a clay form, so I now have a lot more control of my product, and I can move that wherever I want it without it running or flowing or moving, okay? So make sure that when you're creating your free edge that you are draining out that little bit of extra liquid, so it's in more of that clay form rather than a wet form, okay? Let's go ahead and actually apply this to our nail. I want to make sure that you guys are being able to see everything here. And I think there were some questions as to what I'm using. You guys, everything that I'm using here today is Young Nails. I know there was a question about the table towels, and these are our Young Nails table towels. They are not just a regular paper towel. They are an absorbent towel, and they work excellent for when you're working with your acrylic, for cleaning out your brush, and all of those kind of things. So I definitely recommend these. We are using the traditional acrylic today. This is not the extreme low odor. This is our traditional product. And I think that was all the questions that I was able to catch there real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and pick up our first pearl. Again, I'm draining out those air bubbles out of my brush. I'm going to tap the back side, turn my brush over. I'm going to press and pull, bounce, bounce. I'm going to take that pearl. I'm going to drain out that extra liquid. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to set that down onto my form. I'm going to put some pressure on, lift up, and I like to wipe out my brush just to get my brush to widen out a little bit more. I'm going to start right in the center. I'm going to press that product so it's nice and even through the center. And then I'm going to use the edge of my brush to bring that product in. I'm going to press with my brush, bring that product in with the edge of my brush. So press up into the corner, in on the sides, up to the corner, in on the sides. Now I'm going to walk all the way across, pressing all the way across to keep everything nice and even. Again, use the edge of my brush. Now that fat belly part of the brush. You guys, I'm going to get this product on here, and then I do want to show you some different areas of the brush so that you guys know exactly what part of the brush I'm using. Again, using the side to press in, straighten out my lower arches. And I'm going to wipe my brush out again, walk that product or walk my brush all the way across that product to make sure that I'm keeping everything nice and even. So I have a good even thickness all the way through that whole extension. I don't have excess bulk over here and not enough product over here. By walking from side to side and pressing from side to side, that's going to help to keep that product nice and even all the way through. Okay. Terra Tafoya, is this Greg's brush? Yes, this is Greg's Signature Series brush. It is a size 12, so you can pick up really nice large pearls with this, but because it comes to that really nice tight point, if you just drain a little bit of that, little bit more liquid out of your brush, you can actually pick up even those teeny tiny little pearls. So this brush is absolutely amazing for your acrylics, whether you're working on longer nails or shorter nails, it's going to be a great brush for you. Now, as we're talking about brushes here, a couple of things to notice. There is a little bit of a crimp right in the ferrule, in that little part that holds the bristles. That's going to give you more of a flat wedge to your brush. And when you wipe your brush, you want to make sure that you're always wiping it flat with that crimp. So if I turn that over, so my crimp is here. You don't want to be wiping it on the edge. You don't want to be wiping it on that side area here. If you start wiping there, do you see how your brush actually splits? That's going to cause your brush to split and kind of get out of shape. So always make sure that you're wiping it flat with that crimp. Okay. So again, we're going to be using more of the belly, the fat part here, as we're pressing out the product here. We're going to be using more of the edge right through here or right through here when we're cleaning up and pressing in those sidewalls. Okay, so just different areas of the brush are how you're going to be sculpting and building those nails. Okay, now let's talk about that one little piece of glitter that I don't know where that came from, but we'll take that off. Now, when we go to build the rest of the structure of our nail, a lot of this has to do with brush angles. So I'm going to move my acrylic out of the way for just a second here. So when you're applying your product at your cuticle area, you want to make sure that your brush is coming in at a downward angle to that cuticle area. You don't want to be putting your product on flat like this, because what's going to happen is, I'm going to open this up so you can see, if I have my brush flat, do you see all of that space underneath here? If I'm pressing my acrylic on here, this area is going to stay thick with acrylic, and I'm going to press out this area here flat. What I want is the exact opposite. I want this area back here by my cuticle to be nice and thin, and I want this area right here in my stress area to be a little bit thicker. So that's why we want to keep our brush at this angle. Now, I don't want to be working with my client's nail flat like this, because if I put my product on here, gravity is going to take that product and run down the sides. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I take another little tip here, we'll pick up our pearl, press. This one I'm not going to drain out, and I'll tell you about that in just a second here. But if I were to, come in camera, when I put my product on here, let's just set it here. If I put my product on here, what's going to happen if I keep that nail flat, that product is going to start to run to the sides, okay? I don't want it to run to the sides because it's going to start to get out of control. I'm just going to kind of help it along here just so you guys can see what I mean. But that product is going to start to run down to the sides, and it's going to start to get into your skin and to your cuticle and all that kind of stuff. If we're angling the finger downward, let's come back and try this one again. We pick that up, angle the finger downward, still keeping your brush at that angle. When we set that product down, now that product is going to flow down the length of the nail. So you can see it's flowing down the length of the nail rather than down into the sides of the nail. Okay, so making sure that you're always keeping your brush angles correct and the nail angle correct. Okay, all right, let me grab another clean towel here. All right, so let's go ahead and apply this. So again, we're going to pick up our pearl. Now on our free edge, we did drain out that pearl to bring it to clay form. On the cuticle area, we want that moisture in our pearl. We want the product to be able to flow down the length of the nail. So we're not going to drain out the liquid, but what we're going to do is just wait a few seconds. I would say about 3 to 4, maybe 5 seconds before we apply this onto the nail. So this way it gives it just a little bit of a chance to polymerize. I'm not going in with that pearl completely saturated, completely wet. I want it to polymerize for just a few seconds. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll set that down at 5. Put a little bit of pressure. I'm going to use my brush. Now you see there's a little bit of space in between there. I have my finger angled downward. I'm going to use the point of my brush to press out that back cuticle area. That's how I'm going to get my product right up to that cuticle, but it's going to be nice and thin and nice and flush down to that natural nail. I'm going to let that product flow down the length of the nail. You guys, I have my nail pointed straight down to the table. I'm going to let that product flow. Once it stops flowing, I'm going to pivot my brush. So here I got my brush flat. I'm going to pivot it on the side, and I'm going to blend out my side here. I'm going to pivot to the other side, blend out my side, and then I'm going to start to blend that. Now you guys, I've been talking for a little bit while I should have been working. So my product is starting to set up just a little bit, but that's okay. We're just going to blend that edge of the pearl. So as I blend that out, I'm not trying to pull product all the way from that cuticle area. I'm just blending out that edge so that we don't have a seam right in the middle there. So you can see at this point, because I had my brush at that angle, I have a nice thin and tapered cuticle area and a nice thick stress area. We want a little bit of extra thickness right in that stress area for added support and durability. Okay, you don't want just a flat pearl on, or a flat nail on there. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more pearl. We're going to put one more right through here to blend our free edge up to the arch. Now this one I will do almost a combination between our clay form and our wet form. So the clay form that we used on the free edge and the wet form that we used up in our cuticle area. This one I'm going to pick up and we're going to press, bounce, bounce. I'm going to give it just a quick drain, so maybe 1-2 seconds. I'm going to turn my brush around, I'm going to set that down, and I'm going to blend back. Blend back, blend back, pivot my brush on those sides to blend back, wipe out my brush. Now I can come back in from the front and I can press that product out. So it did flow a little bit, but not out of control. Okay, I want just a little bit of clay form, not too much, just enough so that the product is going to do the majority of the work for me, and then I can just guide it into place. Now at this point, I am going to turn my brush around and blend that back up to my, my stress area again, because I want to taper it a little bit. I want it nice and thin at my free edge, and I want to bring a little bit of that bulk right back up to that stress area. So that's how I'm going to get a really nice arch to my nail. Again, you guys, all of the different brush angles and how you move your brush is how you're going to create the proper shape and structure for this nail. Okay. All right. So blending back. At this point, we are going to let this nail set up a little bit, and I think we're good to go. So that does need a few minutes to set up completely. So usually in the meantime, as you're working on the rest of the nails, by the time you get done with all 10 nails, that first one is going to be set and ready to go. But for today, in the meantime, I want to show you a couple of different things. I want to show you how to clean out your brush first of all, and then we'll go from there. So again, I'm going to grab a few more of my little cut up table towels. Now, as you're working, I know we were talking about wiping your brush, so always make sure that you're wiping your brush flat on, flat with that crimp. You're not wiping it on the edges. When we rinse out our brush, now as you're finished working, sometimes I will just let my brush sit in my monomer for just a few minutes. That way, if there is any little bits of acrylic that may be kind of starting to stick into my brush or maybe clog up my brush, that monomer is going to soak those out. Monomer is really the only thing that we recommend using to clean your brush. If you've got a ton of acrylic that maybe you didn't realize was stuck in your brush, you may add 1 or 2 drops of acetone to your monomer to really help to soak that out. But if you've just been using your brush, soaking it in just the monomer is going to be enough to dissolve any product that may be stuck in your brush. Okay, so we don't recommend using acetone, but as a last resort, you might be able to do that. Okay, most of the time, just soaking that in the monomer is going to rinse out all of that acrylic that's in there. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take our brush, we're going to wipe on one side, turn your brush over, wipe on the other side, and then you're going to touch just the point of the brush down and roll that to a point as you're dragging your brush through. And what that's going to do, that's going to wipe out any product from your brush and it's going to roll it back to a nice point. So now your brush is going to be ready to go for your next application. Okay, so always make sure that you're keeping your brush nice and clean and back into shape. And then you want to make sure that you're storing your brush probably in a container or something like that where it's not going to get dust on it. You want to make sure that you're keeping your brush clean in between uses. Okay, now I'm going to close up my powder. I'm also going to close up my liquid. Now at the beginning I showed you guys that I had a little bit of liquid in here. I wait until I'm completely done with my set in case there's maybe a little bit of touch up that I need to do, or if I need to add a little bit of product somewhere, I'm going to leave that liquid in there, but I am going to change that out for the next time for my next use, so I don't use that old monomer again. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our nail here. And you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join our community. You guys, I'm telling you, you want to make sure that you're joining all of our communities, our text community, our YouTube, our Instagram. Make sure you join our communities. That's my little hint for today. That's all I'm going to tell you. All right. So as my nail is setting up, I can feel that it's still a little bit soft and a little bit pliable. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pinch a little bit more of a curve into that nail, a little bit more of a C curve. And what this is going to do, this is going to give our nail a little bit more of a tighter coffin shape, but it's also going to help with the strength of the nail. So if we bring in a C curve nice and tight, that's going to really give our nail a good amount of strength to it. Okay. Now, my nail is almost set and I can just about hear it clicking. I don't know if you guys can hear this on camera or not, but if I take my brush handle and I tap on that nail, when you hear that sharp clicking, that is going to tell you that your nail is set and it's ready to file on. So I'm going to take my form off, pinch that together underneath, take my form off. I am going to grab my dust collector. Anytime I'm doing any kind of filing on nails, I always like to use my dust collector. This is going to help to keep any dust out of my breathing zone so that I'm not breathing in that acrylic dust or gel dust or anything like that. So always make sure you're using your dust collector. I'm going to be using our X-Cut carbide bit today. And we'll turn on the dust collector. I'm going to turn my E-file up to about 15,000 RPMs. And we're going to start by just cleaning up our lower arches. I'm going to just push straight through that lower arch. Coming a little closer. Straight through that lower arch so that our lower arch is coming right out from that natural nail. It's not angled downward. It's just coming nice and straight out. On the other side, I'm going to pull forward. as you're e-filing, you always want to make sure that you're going against the rotation of the bit. So whatever direction the bit is rotating, you want to go against that so that your bit is actually going to cut. Okay? On our free edge, I'm going to use a little bit more of the center to the base of the bit. I'm going to come across from left to right, straighten out that free edge. And Gina is asking, do you have any gel nail videos? You guys, here on our YouTube channel, we have over 3,000 different videos for you. We have lots of gel videos. We have lots of acrylic videos. We have lots of tip videos. So all of the different techniques that you want to learn, we've got lots of videos on electric filing. So if you need a little bit more education on how to use the electric file like I'm using today, you guys check out our channel here. And again, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to subscribe so that you know when we go live and that you can get notifications when we do post new videos. So don't miss out. We've got a ton of great education for you here, and you guys, it's all free. It is all free. We don't charge you for education here on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you're not missing out on that. So I'm just pulling my bit all the way through, and I was looking from the free edge, and it looks like my right side is hanging a little bit lower than my left side. So I'm just going to turn that nail on the side, clean up that lower arch just a little bit more. Awesome, Gina. Thank you so much for subscribing. I saw that. I appreciate that, you guys. Awesome, awesome. Just going to pull my bit all the way through that whole surface area, making sure everything is nice and smooth. And the bit that I'm using, this is our X-Cut carbide. This is a coarse bit. Now, if you don't feel 100% comfortable with the X-Cut, we also have our safety bit. So it's the same grit, it's just a different top to it. This one has the rounded top. So if you're maybe a newbie or if you're not quite comfortable using the electric file, this one is, it's going to get up into that cuticle area, but it's not going to have that sharper edge like the X-Cut does. So another option for you. All right, we're going to switch back to my sanding band. So that same sanding band that we used to prep the nail, I'm going to switch back to this, and I'm going to turn my speed down now to about 7,000 RPMs. And I'm actually going to put that in just a little farther in. It was a little too far out. And we're going to go through and just taper everything in a little bit more. Just perfect it all, especially around those edges, making sure that my nail is as smooth as I can get it. I am going to go back with my hand file, but I like to go through with the sanding band because I feel like this helps to really refine so that when I do pick up my hand file, I'm not going to have a lot of work to do. The more I can do with my electric file, the better it's going to be on my hands and my body and my neck and my shoulders and all of that. So the more I can do with my e-file, the easier it's going to be for me. Okay? So again, just flowing through all of those same areas that I was filing. And again, you guys, if you need more education on filing, we definitely find, we've got a ton of great videos here on our YouTube channel on our filing system. So check those out. I am going to grab my 150 grit file to finish this nail. Now this is a brand new file. So I'm going to grab my prep file, and you guys, I always have a file that I use just for prepping my files. That's why I have it labeled as prep. I don't use this on a real person. I just use it for taking off the sharp edges of my file. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to run that file right across the top, angle that file just a little bit, catch that edge. Same thing on the other edge, catch that other edge. Because when files are created, they have a little bit of a sharp edge. And if you don't remove that sharp edge, you do stand a chance of cutting your client's skin, or if you're working on yourself, your own skin. So always make sure that you go through, remove that sharp edge, season all of your files so that you don't have any edges that are going to cut. And notice that I always do run my own hand or my own fingers over that to make sure that it's not sharp anymore. I would much rather cut my own finger than my client's finger, but hopefully you're not going to cut anybody if you've removed those edges properly. So we're just going to go through, shape up the perimeter, our sidewalls here, shape up our free edge, I'm going to turn that client's hand on the side. I'm going to clean up that lower arch. And you guys, this is one of the reasons that we do especially remove that sharp edge, because you're seeing that I'm actually filing right up towards her skin. Even if I were filing on her skin, it's not going to cut because I've already removed those sharp edges. Okay, so nice and straight out there. We're going to turn the finger on the other side. Get that nice and straight. And then we'll just go through and we will taper in around our cuticle area, right up those sides, back down our other side, and taper in. And you guys, all that I'm really doing at this point is customizing, because the majority of my filing was done with my electric file. So you can see everything is fairly smooth, fairly even. I'm just customizing. I'm going to turn my client's hand around and I'm going to check her nail from this view. Okay? This is how she's probably going to be looking at her nails. She's going to look at them like this. So I want to make sure that everything is going to be straight from her view. So I'm going to shape up my sidewalls, my free edge, make sure everything looks nice and even. And then I'm going to look backwards down the barrel of the nail. So from the back end, I can see if there's any high spots, any low spots, and I can just flow my file all the way from one side to the other to clean up any of those high spots or low spots. Really making sure everything is nice and even all the way through. And notice that I do put my hand behind there. Sometimes it's harder when you've got those white towels behind you to see how that nail is looking. So that's why I do put my hand behind there, to give a little bit of a shadow so that I can see exactly how that nail is filing out. And I think we are looking good here. I think everything is the shape that I wanted, maybe a little bit right around my cuticle. And I think we are good to finish up our nail. All right, you guys, let me know in the chat. First of all, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, but let me know in the chat, do you guys want to see just a basic, I'm not going to say basic French because I'm going to do a slightly artistic French, but do you want to add a little bit of a floral kind of a design, or do you want to just see the French? Let me know. Do you want floral or just French? Let me know in the chat. All right, so in the meantime, while you guys are doing that, I'm just dusting off that natural nail, cleaning out that any dust from underneath, and then we're going to grab my swipe again, and we're going to take a little bit of the swipe, and we're going to cleanse that nail. All right, you guys, I'm seeing some French, seeing some floral. So those of you that are wanting French, you'll get the fun French. But then we'll add, it looks like you guys want to see a little bit of floral. Now, we're not going to go too crazy with our floral, you guys. This is going to be an easy design that you can do fairly quickly. So if you want to add on a little bit of extra art for your client, or just kind of mix it up a little bit for the springtime, that's what we're going to do. So not anything too time consuming, but we are going to go through with one coat of our protein bond all the way through from cuticle to free edge. Now you guys notice I did not do any buffing of this nail, okay? We don't need to, and we actually don't want to. If you create too smooth of a surface, your gel and your art things that you're putting on top are not going to adhere. So Rova Nota says, can we have it all? You know what, Rova? Yes, you can have it all today. I will do both the fun French and a design for you guys. Again, just a quick design. But I'm going to do one coat of Sheer Pink 101. Now you guys, Sheer Pink is not going to give this nail a ton of color, but when I'm working with the Cover Pink, I absolutely love putting a coat of our Sheer Pink 101 on there. And MJ, if you're on our live stream today, I learned this from you, so thank you for this tip. I've used it for many years now, but doing one coat of our Sheer Pink over Cover Pink really just helps to give it a more even, just a really beautiful finish. Now it's not going to change the color a whole lot, but it really just gives a much crisper finish on our nail. So I'm going to put that into our UV LED light. That can go in really for about 30 seconds or so at this point. Just enough time to give me time to get my other colors out here and get my other other tools and things that I'm going to use if I don't drop those on the floor first. All right, so I've got a couple of different tools I'm going to use. And we've got our Mission Control gel paints. And the colors that I'm going to be using today are, let me come a little closer here. We've got Clash, which is a bright limey green. And you guys will love these for the spring and summer. They're so fun. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm calling them bright pastels. I don't know what the technical word for them is, but I'm calling them bright pastels. And so that's what I'm seeing a lot of for the spring. Next color, we've got Adulting. And then we've also got Cloudette. And again, you guys, all of these products that I'm using here today, this is all from Young Nails, youngnails.com. So check out our website. You can see all of these great products there. And again, you guys, make sure to sign up for our text community. I'm just saying. And maybe our moderators can get that text number into the chat as well. Last color we've got is our white, and this one is called Fizz. So those are the colors that I'm going to be using today. I do have my ceramic tile out here. I may or may not use that. We'll see. But I always like to have that just in case, because sometimes I like to use that tile to wipe my brushes out or clean my brushes, or even put a little bit of my gel paint onto the tile and work from the tile. So we'll see how I feel. But I just went through, cleaned that off a little bit, make sure that there's no dust or anything, and then make sure it's nice and dry. All right, so we are gonna do a sideways French. Now, again, you guys, we're not doing a traditional French. We're just gonna add a little bit of fun to this nail. And I think we'll start with, what was that, Adulting? I think we'll start with Adulting. And I'm going to use this is from one of our old art brush collections. It's a little bit more of a rounded, well, I guess a shorter oval brush. That's what I'm going to say, a shorter oval brush. I'm going to take a little bit of that gel paint, and I'm going to start on my side. Now I'm going to start by eyeballing this. Janisha says, what is a sideways French? You guys, I don't know what the technical term is, but what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do that full rounded French. I'm going to go from the corner up here. Let me see if I can get a little dot. Oh, you guys see I'm getting a little shaky. So right up into that corner, we're going to curve down to maybe about that corner. Okay, so those are going to be my guideline. And again, let's take a little bit more. I'm going to turn that finger on the side so I can really make sure to catch that whole edge and make sure that I got color all the way to the edge. Let's take just a little bit more. And then I'm going to sweep my brush from that corner down to that free edge. So from point to point. So right there, some pressure all the way down to that free edge. So just sweeping all the way through. Kind of round that out down towards the end. Now, if you wanted to do a full French, you could come back from the other side and sweep down from the other side. But for today, we're just going to do that fun French, that sideways French. Again, whatever you want to call it. You guys, make it your own. All right. Now, at that point, if I need to, if I feel like I want to crisp up that smile line a little bit more, I can use my micro detailer. I love my micro detailer for things like this because it's such a tiny little brush. And I can use this, I'm going to keep my brush pretty much straight up and down. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of that onto my tile. Now you guys, you can see, I'm just going to run my brush through that and then just pick up a tiny little bit. I'm going to keep my brush a little bit more straight up and down, so straight to the nail. And this is how I can really crisp up that smile line. So you can do either this technique, or I'm going to show you one other thing you can do as well. If you're not quite as steady as you would like to be, and again, you guys, you can see I'm starting to get a little bit shaky. That's okay. But I'm going to show you one other trick. Guys, let me move that up so you can see a little bit better on screen and it's not covered by your chat. All right, so just cleaning up that smile line, crisping that up a little bit, blending all of that color in. Now, if you need to, if your line wasn't as perfect as you want it to be, oops, I'm going to bump my leg here, grab your swipe. Take your swipe and pump a little bit of that up into the cup. And I just have one of our old art, this is actually one of our old acrylic art brushes, and it's just a just has a little bit of a point to it. Tap a little bit of that swipe out, and then you can come in and use that brush as a little bit of an eraser. So if you need to, I'm going to dry out a little bit, you can use that brush to just drag right through that edge and clean that up if you need to. Okay, and I do tend to work very slowly when I do that, because if I work fast, I'm not going to get that really nice, smooth, crisp edge. Got a little piece of lint in my brush here. Again, if you need to, you can do that to touch up. Now again, notice I do have my fingers balancing here. That's how I'm really able to control my brush and control if I do get those little bit of shaky shakes. Okay, so let's go ahead and cure this. Now we have a couple of options. We could either go right into our UV LED light, or what I'm going to use is our touch cure light. And let me come back out. So you guys, the touch cure light is just a little mini curing light, and I'm going to use this to just set this layer into place. Now, if you're working on a full set of these, then I would go into the light all the way, into that full UV LED light. But if I'm just working on one nail, sometimes I like to just freeze that product into place so that my client doesn't have to be going in and out of that light. So just a nice, quick and easy step. I'm going to freeze that for, I would say, 20 to 30 seconds or so, and then we'll turn that off. And then if I need to, I can do a second coat. And I think I want to do a second coat just to get a little bit more coverage of my color here. So we'll grab a second coat. And again, just brushing that through. Now, I'm not going to be as concerned about my smile line here because I already have that smile line underneath. And if I need to go through and clean that up, that's going to be much easier after the second coat, because again, we've already got that first coat underneath there. Just capping that edge a little bit. And then again, go in with my brush and a little bit of swipe, clean that up as needed. All right, let's go ahead and get that under our touch cure light one more time, freeze that into place. And you guys, if you're using the touch cure light, really make sure that you don't have any of your gel paints or anything that has gel in it near that light, because it will cure. So keep in mind your art brushes and things like that. Make sure that those are away from that light so that it's not going to cure in your brush. Okay. Again, you guys, all of the product that I'm using here today is Young Nails. So check out our website, youngnails.com, and you can find all of these gorgeous colors of Mission Control and our acrylics. I think I want to add, maybe let's add just a tiny little accent of white here, just for the fun of it. Now you guys, this is really going to test my shaky shakes today. So I'm going to use a little bit of that white, and we're going to outline, just accenting that smile line. So I'm going to take a little bit of that white. Again, I'm going to roll that. You guys can't see that, can you? I'm going to roll that into my brush so it really just loads up my brush, and then we'll take just a little bit of that. And very little pressure. I'm barely going to even make contact with the nail. Sorry guys, I got to adjust my lighting here really quick. So I'm just going to take a tiny, tiny little bit of that. And I've got that finger angled down so I can see, and actually the angle that you guys are seeing on camera here is what I'm seeing. So I actually see right straight down that nail. And I'm going to just barely touch my brush right at the seam, right where that the adulting color and our natural nail color show, right where those connect. I'm just highlighting right through there. Just a tiny, tiny little line, nice and skinny all the way through. And you guys, you don't have to do the extra accent if you don't want to. If you just want to stick with that one color, that works too. Just going to touch up that edge. And I think I like that, so I'm going to, again, get that under my touch cure light. Again, just setting that color into place. Okay. And you guys, as we're curing here, make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Join our community. If you're enjoying our design today, if you're enjoying our nail, make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, there we go. And again, you guys, 10 to 20 seconds or so just to freeze that into place. Now, let's get into our little bit more of a floral pattern. Now, notice I didn't say I'm doing flowers. I'm doing a floral pattern because I'm just going to change it up today. I was thinking of doing some cute little daisies or something on here, but we're not going to do quite so literal. So I'm going to go into my, let's see, this one was Cloudette. I'm going to take the same micro detailer brush. I'm going to dip that brush straight down in and lift up. What this is going to do, if you look really close, you see there's just a little bit of a teardrop on the end of my brush. That teardrop is what we're going to use to create some flower petals. So I'm going to take that brush. Now, instead of being straight up and down at this point, I'm going to almost lay my brush down onto the nail. I'm going to pick a center point there. I'm going to touch that teardrop right into the center, right onto the nail. And then we're just going to start to pull that brush away, pull that brush towards my right hand, and just drag the end of that off. So there's just a little bit of a petal there. Okay. Now, when I'm doing this kind of a pattern, I am going to cure that in between. I want to freeze each of those petals so that I don't maybe ding up the last petal that I did. So by freezing this into place with our Touch Cure Light, it's going to set that product so that I don't smudge it on the next time around. Okay, same thing. We're going to go straight into our Cloudette. Now here, I had my brush right here. We're going to turn that brush, keep it pointed toward, let me show you guys here. Right here is going to be our center point, okay? So we always want to keep that brush pointed towards that center point when you're laying down those little, we'll call them petals. So again, we've got that little teardrop or that little pearl on the end. Stay into the center, set that pearl down, and gently pull your brush towards your hand. Okay, we've got our second petal there. Again, freeze this into place. Now this one I actually probably don't need to freeze into place because I'm going to work on the opposite side and it's not going to smudge. And this gel paint doesn't run very much, so it's probably going to stay where it's at, but just to be on the safe side, I wanted to cure that into place. All right, we'll do one more petal. So again, into our Cloudette, get that little pearl at the end of your brush, turn your brush so it's pointing towards the middle. Set that down onto the nail and then gently pull towards your hand. Okay, I think I like that. We're going to, again, turn our light on there. And we'll freeze that into place, again, for just a few seconds. And I'm going to clean out my brush. So while this is just setting in there for a couple of seconds, I'm going to take just one of our lint-free towels here and very gently wipe out some of that extra gel paint out of there, cleaning out my brush. And I think that should be good. So let's grab our, what was this, Clash. Let's grab Clash. And this is going to be our leaves, okay? You guys, somebody's asking, can I help with the chats? You guys, I'm trying to see what's happening in the chat. I hope I'm not missing any questions, but hopefully our moderators are there to help out as well. So, all right, let's go ahead and do just a couple of little swipes for our petals. Now this time I don't want that pearl on there. So I'm going to just drag, oops, let me get that in camera. I'm going to drag a little bit of that out. Actually, let me load up my brush a little bit more with this color. So loading that up and then take just a little bit of that. And I'm going to touch that right in underneath here and give it just a little bit of a swirl. So again, you guys, not much. These are not really fancy anythings. They're not fancy petals. Just adding a little bit of that accent. Because again, you guys, this was a floral pattern, not a flower. Okay, so we're going to freeze that into place. Yeah, maybe let me just add a little bit of a thicker line right here. Okay, there we go. All right, so again, we're going to freeze that into place. And And you guys, I feel like I just need one more little accent. So I think I'm going to grab my white again. So we're going to grab Fizz, and I'm going to take my dotting tool. So I've got just a little dotting tool. We're going to add just a couple of tiny little dots. Oh, where do I want them? Maybe right in here. So just to add that little center point to our nail, and freeze that into place again. Freeze that into place, and then we will, whoops. All right, you guys, then we will go ahead and top coat this. And those of you that know what time it is, you know what time it is. So let's go ahead and start our top coat chant in the chat. Oh, it does look like a succulent. Thank you, Crystal Glitterbug. Yes, it does look like a little succulent on there. So let's go ahead and do our top coat. If you know what time it is, you know what time it is. So go ahead and start the top coat chant in the chat. If you are new to our channel and you don't know what I mean by our top coat chant in the chat, first of all, hit that subscribe button, and then just go ahead and type in top coat, top coat, top coat into our chat. And that's our fun way of ending our stream here while I finish up our nail. So I'm going to use our Ultimate Finish top coat. You guys, you can use whatever top coat you like. Ultimate Finish is always one of my favorites because it's a fast top coat. It's going to cure fully in 60 seconds, and it's not going to have a tacky finish that you have to cleanse off. And then also when I'm doing designs like this, they tend to feel a little bit of texture unless you do them ultra, ultra thin. And if they do have a little bit of texture, using that Ultimate Finish being a little bit of a thicker top coat is going to seal that a little bit better, and you're not going to feel that texture quite so much. So lots of great options, or lots of great reasons that I use the Ultimate Finish top coat. And again, you guys, make sure that you are curing that for a full 60 seconds. But for today, I'm going to just cure that for just a few seconds here to freeze that into place so that you guys can see the final look, and you don't have to wait that full 60 seconds to see the final look. So let's go ahead and grab that. All right, you guys, there is our final look on our sideways French. That's what I'm going to call it. Sideways French and our floral pattern. So hopefully you guys will take this idea and run with it, make it your own, create your own designs. Again, all of the products that I was using today are from Young Nails. You can find them at youngnails.com. And make sure to join all of our communities. Make sure to join our texting community. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get all of this great free education. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you being here, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.